Hello and welcome back to Prius Passage. I'm Selena, and as you may know, this video is about my trip to Yellowstone National Park. I hope you've enjoyed the video up to this point. I'll let you finish, but while you're doing that, I'm just going to give you a little background on Yellowstone and my experience while I was there for 3 days. So Yellowstone National Park is an extremely large park. It encompasses about 2.2 million acres. About 4 million people visit it every year. They have more than 10,000 hydrothermal features and more than 500 active geysers, like Old Faithful, the one that everyone knows. It's home to the largest concentration of mammals in the lower 48 states, and there's nearly 300 species of birds that can be found within the park. It has about 290 waterfalls, and there's more than 1,000 miles of hiking trails. Now, while I didn't really get a chance to hike much, I did do a lot of riding around and I was able to see most of the geysers. So I'll let you finish up this video and just see a little bit more of Fire Hose Falls. That's a little cut through that I'm doing now here on my motorcycle. Once this finishes, I'll come back, I'll give you a little story time, and then I'll include a few more pictures. All right, I'll see you then. Well, hello. How'd you like the video? Hopefully it was good. I'm getting a little bit jazzy with the videos now. I kind of know what I'm doing. Hopefully the video was nice. You liked it. I mean, it was interesting. It was like riding through yourself, wind in your hair. Maybe you can have like a fan blow on you while you watch it next time. Make some motorcycle sounds. It'll be just like you're there. So that was my video, one of many from me going to Yellowstone. Like I said, I probably rode 400 miles through Yellowstone over the 3 days that I was there, but I had a shit ton of video footage and like I've said more than once, I'm terrible at editing videos, and to go through all of that footage and to get any snazzier than I just got right there, it's probably not gonna happen. I feel like I deserve a pat on the back for that. I'm pretty impressed with myself. It took me like 4 hours just to do that little 5-minute deal. So please like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you think of it, because if it's not doing anything for you, if you're not loving it, just let me know and I'll go back to just doing these shitty videos just in my car telling you what's going on. I won't go through all that pizzazz. So moving on, that was Yellowstone. It was freaking amazing. I am not terribly outdoorsy. I've never really been into camping or nature or trees or really anything that's outside of an air-conditioned establishment. But I got in the park, and just driving up to it, I was like, my heart was beating. And then when I got there, I ended up, because if you don't know this, so if y'all watch my last story time, you know that I don't know shit about parks, and there's a lot of like little rules and stuff that people who travel to parks know about. Well, one of them is getting an annual pass. So when you go to a state park, you have to pay to get in. It's normally anywhere from like $8 to like $30 to get into each and every park. So that gets crazy expensive. So the first park that I went to, Theodore Roosevelt, I paid I think $25 to get into that park, and the lady let me know that I could buy an annual pass for $80 and I can get into all the parks for just that one-time fee for the $80, or I can continue paying for parks as I went. So at that time I was like, well, I don't know how many parks I'm gonna do. Is it really worth it? So I paid the $25, and she's like, well, don't worry about it. As long as you keep your receipt for 7 days, we'll put the $25 towards the $80 if you decide to upgrade at another park. So I ended up going to a second park, Makoshika, which is in Montana, and I paid like $12 at that one. And then by the time I got to Yellowstone, I was like, I'm going to Grand Teton. I'm sure I'm gonna go to Glacier. There's a couple that I want to go to. So at this point, I'm like, I'm already halfway to the 80. Let me go ahead and upgrade. So I upgraded. I got my annual pass. Let me see if I have it here. That's it. I'm official. I'm a park goer now. So if anyone wants to know what to do at a park, or park etiquette, or who's in the park club, I am now. I still don't know what the fuck's going on, but I got a card. So I have a card now, and I can get into any park for free. Well, not free, I paid $80, but I don't have to pay any additional fee outside of that. And it's for 1 year, one full year. So I got that. I got my little park pass. The guy gave me my little pamphlet. I cried a little bit because I was just like, all right, y'all, I'm in there like swimwear. So I drove into Yellowstone. I came in at the North Gate, which is Mammoth, and because I was coming from Montana, so I came down south into Wyoming where Yellowstone is. So I got into the park, I drove into Mammoth, and the first thing I see, y'all, there's elk everywhere. They're just walking around with their little elk families. They're just laying in the grass. One tried to put his nose in my car. I don't know if elk are dangerous, so I rolled my window up, but it was cute anyway. And so I was taking pictures and videos. I'll see if I can't put like a picture up here of an elk, or the little video that I had of them like walking by my car. So during this time, they mate or no, I guess they mated prior to this, but during this time they start having babies. So they're just everywhere. So the park was completely laden with little elk and moose, and there's one other animal that's like an elk. Probably should look this up before the video, but it's another elk-like animal that's also out there that's not a moose. Google it. It's not my park. So I'll put that video in there, little picture, whatever, so you can see it. And that was the reason why, if you watch any of my other videos of me riding to the park, I was actually riding really slow. One, because there were so many elk in the road, I didn't want to end up running into one. And two, I didn't want to wreck because I was trying to look at everything and ride at the same time, which is really distracting when you're like looking over a cliff. And I don't know if you know about target fixation, but it's a thing among motorcycle riders where you start to look at something and you inadvertently ride directly towards it. So 99% of Yellowstone is directly off cliffs. There's very few rails, or it's just straight drops into the abyss. So I'd be like riding around a curve and I'd see like a waterfall, and I'm like, oh, look at that. And I'd be looking at it and like going back and watching my footage. I'm watching myself like head straight towards a cliff and then slowly swerve back, because I was just, you can't do both at the same time. I saw millions of bikes in the park and I was like, damn, I've never been on the back of a motorcycle, but this would have been the opportune time to have that wind in your hair feeling, but to sit on the back where you could actually see what was going on and you're not just completely stressed out about not killing yourself by riding off the edge of a cliff. So it was nice. I enjoyed riding. There was, if you do ever go to Yellowstone, I highly recommend taking a motorcycle or a moped. Whether you trailer it there or you rent one when you get there or whatever you do, do not take a car into Yellowstone, especially not a car with a trailer. And Lord Jesus, don't bring any sort of large van, bus, RV, motor coach, because 70% of the park, those vehicles aren't even allowed to go. Like, so when there's trails like that little cutoff that I did through Firehose Falls, most of them will have signs that say no trailers, no buses, no RVs, because they're just so sketchy that a large vehicle can get up there and then it can't get back out, so they don't allow them. So one, you're going to shaft yourself out of, you know, a lot of the park because you just can't get to it, or either you're going to be walking 80 miles to get to somewhere that you could have just driven through to see. And two, parking is a nightmare. So this is full park season. Like I told you guys in my last video, my little story time, people book to camp at these parks and they plan their trips and they do their things like a year in advance. Like, people plan this as like their family trip, and the park is just overrun with people. All the campgrounds are full, all the gas stations are full, all the attraction, everything that there is to see, there is 3 million people at all of it. So the cool thing about being on a motorcycle was, which I'm sure all of Yellowstone hated my ass, if there's going to be any reviews, it's going to be about the asshole on the pussy wagon, because I didn't wait in a single line. If there was a line to get into, because the majority of the geysers have like little walkways that you park your car and then you have to walk a little, guided walkway up to wherever the geysers and the paint pots and all the stuff are. So to get into the parking lot, to park, to get on the walkway, you have to wait. Everyone's in a car, waiting to park. So the line is literally a mile long just to get into the parking lot. Then you have to wait for a space. Then you have to park, get all your kids, get all your shit out, and then go on this anywhere from 1 mile to like 6 mile hike to get to whatever it is you're trying to see. So me being on the motorcycle, I would just lane split straight past everybody, pull right up to the front of the walkway, park my bike on the sidewalk, and go see it. People were honking at me. I had a guy flick me off. But like, what it boils down to is I'm not using a parking space, so I'm not, shafting anyone out of going to see anything, because I go and I park on the sidewalk. I don't even park in spaces. 2, I'm on a motorcycle. It's blazing hot outside. I'm not going to sit in a traffic line behind all of these people in their air-conditioned cars waiting for somewhere that I don't have to park. Like, I don't need a parking space. So every single place I wanted to go to, I shot right up through traffic, parked that bitch right up there in front of the walkway, got off and enjoyed my day. So I breezed through the park in no time. If I had that car or that trailer, I probably would have spent 6 hours the first day just driving and looking for parking, and maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours actually seeing things, because it's a hike. Some things are right on the roadway, but the majority of the stuff that I saw required a good walk into the woods, around a valley, up a hill, down a cliff. It took a lot to get there. So if I had to wait to park, to get out, to go do it, to come back, then you have to wait to get out. You can't just get right out of the parking lot because everyone's, in a traffic jam to get out. So it's like an hour and a half process just to get in and out of anywhere. I didn't have that problem. Got off, got on my bike, shot right around traffic, got out, hit the next spot. So I was just banging it out the first day. I probably did 100 miles through the park day one, just because I was just breezing through traffic. I didn't wait for nobody. Time waits for no one. And I didn't wait for a car anywhere in Yellowstone. So if you were at Yellowstone, when I was there and you saw the pussy wagon, I'm not sorry. I realize you shafted yourself in coming to Yellowstone in peak park season with a 3,000-foot motor coach and 87 children, but those weren't my plans. I'm sorry. I had a great time. Maybe you'll know next year. Don't bring all them fucking kids. So I did that. It was beautiful. So I didn't like write myself any notes or anything, but there were several really, really pretty like geysers and springs and things. And the majority of them were pretty accessible to get to, which was nice. I saw a lot of people there on like, wheelchairs or things like that. And there was people with canes and stuff that they hiked their asses back there because it was worth it. But it is a haul. It's not something that you're just gonna get out of your car and take 2 steps and see it. It takes a lot of walking to get to stuff, which was nice because it was really pretty. It was fairly breezy. The motorcycle was lovely. I didn't have to wear a helmet. I usually don't when I'm in parks because the speed limit's like 30 and I'm doing like 25 because, like I said, I ride super slow just because if an animal comes out into the road, I don't want to wreck my bike. So I just ride really slow and I take my time, look at the sights, no rush at all. So my last day in Yellowstone was kind of shitty, to be honest. It was not a good day. And I did it to myself, y'all. I should have known better, and I did not know better. So I decided that I was gonna ride down to Old Faithful. So if I can find a good map of the park, I'll put a map here so you can get an idea of where I started in Mammoth. And I left my car, I unloaded my bike, and then I rode down to where Old Faithful is. It's about 50 miles, maybe 55 miles from one end to the other. So I rode down and I'm getting closer and closer and the sky is getting kind of dark. So anyone who knows me knows that I don't ride with gear. I don't mind riding in the rain. I ride in the rain just fine. I normally ride very slowly, and when I'm out on the highway, in a city, I wear a helmet and I wear a jacket and all that stuff. But when I'm in a park, just fucking around, I don't wear gear. I don't want to be hot. I'm jumping on and off the bike. I just don't do it. I wear sneakers, tank top, pair of shorts. That's what I ride in. So I'm down there and I'm just now so 2 days before I got there, they shut down the road to Old Faithful because they're doing, the bridge was deemed unsafe. So they're rebuilding the bridge that leads to it. So there was like a detour to get to it. So it was a hell of a wait just to get to it. And the road was so narrow that I was kind of inching in between when I could, but it wasn't like I could just do the straight shot down the shoulder like I was doing in other places in the park. So I had to wait, and it was blazing ass hot, and I have a hot ass motorcycle up underneath me, and so I'm just miserable, and I'm sitting there and my hand is locking up because you're clutch in, clutch out every 2 seconds, and I'm just like frustrated. So finally I make it up into the little turn around. I'm starting to see signs for Old Faithful, and I'm like, all right, I'm here. Let me stop and get gas because when I get out of here, I'm sure it's going to be a bitch, and I don't want to have to stop and wait for that. So let me get gas first. So I got gas. I'm pulling into the parking lot to go see Old Faithful, and the sky just gets black. Like it goes from the most beautiful, bright, and freshest of heavens, not a cloud in sight, perfect temperature. Like when I get there, I'm like, yes, this is perfect. And then right after I get gas, it was like a shift. It was like, if you've ever lived in a state, or like when I go to Cuba, it's like it'll be bright 1 second and then the next second it's a whole ass tornado. So that was the feeling that I got from this weather change that happened. So it went from sunny and blue skies and perfect to me coming out the other side of the gas station and it being pitch ass black. So I'm like, yep, it looks like it's about to rain. And people have told me before that in the mountains there are they have their own climate, so you can, because there's no service in Yellowstone, not for me anyway. I have straight talk that runs off AT&T, and I'm poor, so I don't have any special shit going on. So I had zero service, like no bars, straight X, don't even try it service. So I couldn't check the weather or anything. But I'm like, all right, the last town I just left, I checked the weather in Emigrant, which was the last town that I got to before I got there. a couple days in advance, so I had an idea of, weather. So I'm like, said the weather was fine, there was 0% chance for the next 7 days, like I am golden. So like I said, sky gets black, and I'm like, you know what, I don't have any gear on, and if it happens to like downpour, it's probably not going to be a good time. So let me turn around and start making my way back up north, because like I said, it's like 52 miles or 54 miles, something like that, from where I am to where my car is. So I don't even get to see Old Faithful. Like I didn't even like see it from afar. I pulled into the parking lot, got gas, hauled ass back the other way. I'm like, I'll come back tomorrow. I don't want to get caught in the rain in a tank top and shorts. And then once the sky got dark, all of a sudden the temperature dropped too. It went from like 80 to like 52 in a split second. So I'm like, now it's cold. So if it does rain, it's going to be freezing rain at 50 miles an hour while I'm trying to, 50 plus miles an hour while I'm trying to haul ass back to my car. So I'm hauling. The sky's getting darker and darker. I feel a little sprinkle. I'm like, okay, Selena, you got to figure out what you're going to do. You're either going to have to try to find somewhere, because there's not bathrooms everywhere. There's not anywhere that there's shelter. So now I'm like, I need to get to the nearest bathroom or shelter. So if it does rain, I can at least stand under a shelter, wait for the rain to stop, haul ass back to the car. So I'm booking it. I'm doing like 70. The max speed in the park is like 45. But I'm just like, I need to get back now. So I haul ass, and I'm like, I see a bathroom, and I'm like, okay, but right now it's just like spotting. It's not even a full sprinkle. It's just like, 1 or 2 dots here, and I'm like, let's see if I can't make it to the next one. Let's get closer. So keep on going. I'm doing like 75 straight down into elk country, which was dangerous as shit, y'all. I shouldn't have been doing that, but I did. And so I start going, and right after I leave that opportunity, and mind you, the roads are really narrow, a lot of traffic. So when I chose to forego that bathroom, there was no going back to it, because traffic was just, it wasn't going to allow me to turn around, it wasn't going to allow me to get to it. So I was fucked at that point. So I go, and now it starts to rain, downpour, absolute downpour, and the temperature drops even lower. I feel like I'm getting hit with buckets of ice water, and I'm wearing tank top, shorts. That's it. No gloves, no jacket, no nothing. So I'm like, oh my God, just let me make it to somewhere with a shelter. So I'm just riding, just white knuckling it, trying to get to the next place with some sort of shelter or covering. So I get to this place, to this very next little spring that has these little nasty ass porta potty type bathrooms that stink so bad, but it's the only place that has a roof over it. So I'm standing next to this nasty ass bathroom. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna wait it out. So I'm standing there like freezing cold, wet, just miserable. And I talked to a guy, and I'm like, hey, are you from around here? And he's like, yeah, I bring my family here all the time. I'm from, wherever. And I'm like, so what do you think the odds are that the rain stops anytime soon? And he's like, well, as you know, the mountains have their own climate, so could be 5 minutes, could be 5 days. There's no telling. So I'm like, I'm gonna give this about an hour, and then I'm gonna start panicking. So I gave it about 7 minutes, and it kept raining, and I was panicked the fuck out. So I'm like, you know what? There are people packed in. It's not like I'm out here in the, remember my last story time, I was in the woods by my damn self, like I shouldn't have been. This time, jam-packed with people. So I'm like, you know what, Selena? Just start asking people, is anyone heading to Mammoth? Hitchhike to Mammoth, leave the bike here, come back with the trailer to get the bike. Done and done. So I stand there, and I'm asking people, hey, are you heading to Mammoth? Hey, excuse, sir, ma'am, are you anyone? No. Oh, all right. So then now the spring is cleared out, and there's like no one at the spring. The one last couple that was there, I asked them, they're like, no, we're not going to Mammoth. We're going to the halfway point, and then we're exiting the park. So, right, I'm straight north. They're going halfway to where I'm going, and then turning out of the park. So she's like, no, I'm sorry, we're not going that way, and we only have room for one. And I'm like, well, I'm just one. She's like, you don't have anyone with you? I'm like, no, it's just me. I'm just one. Party of one. Can I just, if you can even get me up to that halfway point, then I'll, hitchhike from there, because at least I'm halfway. So she's like, okay, well, let me go ask my husband. So she disappears, and I'm just standing next to this nasty ass bathroom. And her husband comes back, and he's like, yeah, nah, we got the kids in the car, and we're trying to go home, so I can't help you. So they leave. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Do you, like, who does that? Like, I hope Karma gets him, because that was just a terrible thing to do. So I wait for like another 20 minutes, and the rain starts to lighten up a little bit. And I'm like, okay, you're already wet, you're already cold, just do the best you can, get on the bike and ride. So that's what I did. Get on the bike, start riding, and I am freezing. The rain is hitting me like ice daggers. And then to top it off, if you don't know this, my rear fender is chopped. So normally on a nice regular bike that normal people have, there's a rear fender, a piece of metal that covers the back tire. Purpose of that little piece of metal is to stop water from shooting off the back of your tire and hitting you in the back of the neck. So who needs one of those? Not me, because I chopped the shit off. So not only am I getting sandblasted from the front, I'm getting fucking fire hose from the back. So I ride another maybe 7 minutes, and I'm like, I cannot, I'm gonna die. I can't do it. I cannot. So now, like I said, now I'm outside of shelter zone. There's no turn around. There's nothing for another, 10 miles. So I pull off on the side of the road, put my hazards on, and I literally have my thumb out trying to hitchhike to get back to my car. So I'm out there in a state park where no one has service, on the side of the road, in a tank top and shorts, standing in the pouring rain with my hazards on, and no one will stop. Cars are just blowing by me. They're throwing water on, and they're looking at me. People are looking at me very concerned. So they see me, and they're just blowing by. I'm out there for like 10 minutes just getting rained on. Like, I'm standing just like this, just getting rained on, and no one will stop to even ask me like, hey, are you okay? Or can I go get someone for you? Or just to stop for anything. No one stops. So I'm like, well, I'm fucked. I'm just gonna, stand here in the rain until it stops, or get up the balls to just drive in the freezing rain and figure out how to get myself 47 more miles north. So then I hear the rumble of motorcycles, and I'm like, okay, these are probably going to be couples on bikes, so it's not like anyone could give me a ride, and I probably wouldn't want a ride anyway because I'm just too cold to be on a motorcycle. But at least they will stop, and I can send them for help. Like, hey, if you see a ranger, let them know I'm stranded, send someone back to me. So the motorcycles are coming. I'm like in tears because I'm so happy, because I'm like, they will stop. If anyone's going to stop, they're going to stop. So I'm waving at this point. Like, at first I was just thumb out. Now I'm like straight up waving, almost in the roadway. And there are 4 motorcycles. 2 have couples on them and 2 are by themselves. Waving. They're coming towards me, right? And it's just wide open, so I can see them coming from a mile away, and I can hear them from 3 miles away. And they're coming towards me, and I'm like stepping into the road, to make sure that they see me. And the guy slows down a little bit and goes around me, and the whole pack blows right by me. So if you're not familiar with motorcycles, but it's kind of like a fucking unwritten code that if you see someone on a motorcycle who needs help, you have an obligation to help them. I don't care you have to stop and do something. If it's nothing but to stop and say, hey, I'm sorry about your situation, you're supposed to stop. You have to. I don't even know, well, they didn't stop. So continued to stand there. And now I'm like, I went from being like sad to being furious, because it's like harming children. You just don't do it. It's one of those things you just don't fucking do, and they did it. And I was just mad as hell about it. I wanted to get on my bike to follow them, to try to run one of them off the road. I was so damn mad about it. But I didn't. Stayed right there. Probably about another 10 minutes, and this big Suburban stops whole damn family of people. A guy pulls over, he's like, hey, you all right? And I'm like, no, my bike. He's like, is something wrong with your bike? And I'm like, no, nothing's wrong with it. It's just really cold and wet, and I just don't think I'm gonna make it 47 miles on this motorcycle through the mountains to get back up to where my car is. Can you give me a ride to Mammoth? So he's like, well, I got all my kids in the car, but we can move them over, but we're not going to Mammoth. We're going to the halfway point, but we can take you there. There's a campground. They'll have a phone and you can call a ranger. So I'm like, perfect. I'll be somewhere covered and I'll have access to, get help. So they take me up to this campground. Nicest freaking family in the world. I wish I'd gotten their information because I would send them a card for them just stopping, because I was soaking wet. They let me into their car. They piled their kids all to one side so that I could get in there, and they were, they did the best they could. So I get to the campground. The camp guy calls the NPS, National Park Service. The lady gets on the phone with me and she's like, so if we don't have any rangers available for you to courtesy escort you to Mammoth, we're gonna have to get you a tow truck, and the tow truck will come and get your bike and pick you up, but there's gonna be a fee. Now, I didn't ask her what the fee was, but my assumption is normally a tow truck is like $170. I can only imagine what a motorcycle tow up into the mountains in the middle of Yellowstone would cost. Like, I just don't even want to know what it costs. Whatever it costs, I didn't have it. I had just paid to get my trailer fixed. I had just paid, $60 to get into this damn park. Like, I was like, lady, I do not have any money for a tow. But if that's all you've got, I will figure it out and I'll take the tow. So she's like, all right, well, let me do what I got to do, and I'll call back here to the campground and I'll let you know what I come up with. So I'm like, all right. So I'm waiting there at the campground. Just, they won't let me inside. I thought they were going to be like, oh, here, come inside, have a hot chocolate. Nope. Standing outside, standing on the sidewalk, Corona. So I'm waiting out there in the mist. I got a fucking towel on my head, like that's doing anything. And it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. The guy comes back out, little campground guy. He's like, hey, they still hadn't called me back. I don't know what to do. You can just, we have a little covered picnic area if you want to walk back into the campground. And I'm like, I would love to, but I do not want to fucking miss a ranger should one just coast through that can give me a ride. So I'm standing out at the sidewalk, and finally it's like an hour and a ranger pulls up, and I like run at him, and I'm sure I probably scared the shit out of him. I'm like, are you going to Mammoth? I need to go to Mammoth. And he comes up and he's like, are you Selena? And I'm like, yes. He's like, I'm your courtesy escort. I'm going to take you, we have jurisdictions, so I'm going to take you 20 miles, to the end of my jurisdiction, and then I'm going to have another ranger take you the last 20 miles to get up to Mammoth. And I'm like, I'm crying. I'm like, thank you so much. Can I give you a hug? He's like, no, lady, don't come near me, Corona. I'm like, okay, no, it's fine, thank you. And he's like, but you're gonna have to sit in the back seat of my car. And I'm like, I was like, bitch, I'll ride on the top. I don't care at this point. I just need to get back. I'm cold and I'm tired and I'm frustrated, and just please take me back to my car. So he's like, you need to wear a mask. So I put the mask on. We're riding. He's actually really nice. He's talking to me about his career and everything else. Super nice guy. We get to the next, to the, midpoint, and he's like, I have to take a call, so I'm going to drop you off here. He's like, I would wait with you, but if you're fine, he's like, if you need me to wait here, I will, but if you're fine, I'm going to drop you off here and you wait for the next car. And I'm like, nope, it's fine. Do what you got to do. I've been in the cold. I'm wet already. Like, I don't fucking care. I'll wait right here. So I wait, and he's like, the guy should be here any second. We left at the exact same time. I'm like, okay. So I'm standing outside, and I'm like, now I'm starting to feel a little bit relieved because at least I know it's being taken care of. He leaves, and it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And the next ranger finally pulls up, and he's like, hey, I thought you were at the other place, and that's where I was, so I was over there, and so I decided to drive, and I saw you standing here and you didn't look. And I'm like, just, can we go? So we go. He was not as nice. He didn't say a word to me the whole way. He was driving very aggressively to the point that I felt like I was going to toss my cookies, because he was taking curves like 60 miles an hour. And I don't know if it's because he had somewhere to be, or he was just annoyed that he was doing it. I don't know, but he was obvious. It was very obvious he was not having a good time. So I didn't say a word. Drove the whole like 25 minutes with this guy up to my car, and we get up into Mammoth, and he's like, where's your car? And I'm like, oh, it's right here. And he's like, okay, well, that's easy. And I'm like, okay. So he pulls me up and I get ready to get out, and he's like, he's not getting out of the car. And I don't know if you know this, but police cars block from the back. You can't get out of the back seat by yourself. It makes sense, right? Because that's where criminals go. So I'm sitting in the back and I'm just kind of like waiting, you know, for him to get, because like I don't want to say it to him because I can tell he's already really fucking annoyed right now. So I don't want to be like, hey sir, can you open my door? So I'm just like kind of waiting, like maybe he's just getting himself together, and he's like kind of glancing like, why are you not getting out of the car? And I'm just kind of like looking, you know. And so he's like, look, and then finally he jumps out of the car and he's like, you know, he goes and he lets me out of the car. And I'm like, thank you so much, sir. You have a great day. I appreciate you so much. If there's anything. And he shuts the door and he walks away. Like, so I make it back to my car. And even though the guy was not very nice, I was still very appreciative that they took me 40 something miles back to my car for free. And I didn't have to pay any money, for one. And for two, it was relatively promptly, because had I had to go the tow truck route, there's no fucking telling when they would have one available and when it would be able to make it to me, because a big ass tow truck trying to get up and through the park, like I told you earlier, is no easy feat. So I was very thankful regardless. So I get to my car, I have to get my trailer, and now I have to drive 55 miles back to where my bike is. So like I would love to change and get dry and like clean myself, or you know, just kind of collect myself, but it's almost dark, and the last thing I want to have to do is to load my bike in the dark in the rain and end up dropping it. So I haul ass straight back to my bike, because one, I don't want anyone to mess with it. Two, I don't want, like I said, to load it in the dark and drop it on the ground. Three, I don't want it to get stolen, because people are around here with these big ass motor coaches and trailers. My bike weighs 500 pounds. It would take you 10 seconds to load that bitch up in the back of a trailer and disappear. So I'm hauling ass back to the bike. So I get down there, I get back to the bike, I start loading it up, and people are stopping. Hey ma'am, do you need any help? Hey, are you all right? Is the bike, did your bike broke down? Are you okay? So I finished loading up my bike. Double check all the straps, make sure everything's good, because I'm stressed out, I'm shaking, I'm cold, like I'm just, you know, my nerves are rattled at this point. And then it's like an hour and a half, not an hour and a half, it's probably like 55 minutes just distance wise to get out of the nearest exit of the park. So I'm like, I'm just tired and I just want to be out, and I want to get somewhere that I can park and, you know, wipe myself down and change my clothes and all that stuff. So I'm driving out of the park and there's a traffic jam. So it takes like almost 2 hours to get out of the park. And I'm still sitting in freezing cold, wet clothes, you know, just inching at 2 miles an hour. Finally make it out of the park. The exit that I'm in is west, so I come out and I go straight into Idaho. So I'm like, perfect, that's actually good, because hopefully the first thing I'll see is a rest stop where I can park my car, get changed, you know, there'll be a bathroom, it'll be fine. So I get out and I'm driving and there's no rest stop. It's like 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles. There's like one gas station, it's not open, there's no bathroom. And the temperature, like I said, has dropped. So now it's like 40 degrees outside and I'm wet. So worst comes to worst, I don't care at all. I'll get out and I'll get naked on the side of the road and change. You know, I'll pull up to a bush or something and I'll just do it quickly and get in my car. It's not a big deal. But it's freezing. Like I cannot get myself out of the car to stand long enough to take my clothes off, to dry off and then put, you know, dry clothes. It's just way too cold for that. So I end up driving like 20 something miles before I finally hit a little gas station with the lights on. I'm like, oh, thank God. So I get up there, walk up to the door, closed at 7 p.m. It's like 9 o'clock at night. So I'm like, I can't drive anymore. I'm cold. I'm tired. Like, so I get out, I brave it out, dry myself off, throw a sweater on, get in the car and go to bed. So the next morning I wake up and I'm like all congested and I feel like shit and my back hurts, and it was a hell of a day. But you know what I never saw? Old Faithful. So now I have to drive back 20 something miles to get to the park, gate, just to the opening of Yellowstone. Then it's like an hour to get down to where Old Faithful is inside of the park. And I'm like, I have been here now for 3 days. And, well, this is day 3. And if I don't see Old Faithful, like, what is the point? Like, that is what Yellowstone is about. Like, every spring and geyser and fall that I saw, I have to go. Like, I have to go and see it. So I did. And I drove, and it took me like 3 fucking hours to get back down there, through traffic and all that. So I get there and I park. And I didn't take I was going to drop my bike and ride my bike because I knew it would be faster, but I just did not have the energy in me to get it down off the trailer and then to have to put it back up afterwards. So I'm like, just drive the car there, wait in traffic. At least you'll be in your air-conditioned car. Like, it's fine. Get down to Old Faithful, find parking, walk up there. Thank God it is right there. Like, I'm parked right here. Old Faithful is 20 yards that way. There's no walkway, there's no anything. It's just right there in a big open field. So I was very thankful for that because I was tired. So I get over there and there's thousands of people out there because if you don't know this, you have to wait. The geyser goes off every 5 to 65 minutes depending on how it's feeling that day. So I get there and there's people, just gangs of like where do people go for religious holy stuff? Mecca. So there's so many people out here, it's insane. So I'm like, oh fuck, I'm not gonna get anywhere near it to see it. So I'm walking towards it, and like now I'm starting to like run out of steam again because I'm like, this is gonna be another fiasco. And I walk right up and there is a bench right there, dead center, wide open, front row. So I go and I park my ass right on it, because normally I'd be like, hey, is anyone sitting here? I was like, fuck whoever's sitting here, because my ass is here now. And I just sat my ass right on the bench. And so now I'm waiting and I'm surrounded by people, right? So I look over and I'm like, hey, do you have any idea when it might go off? And the lady's like, well, the predictions are 5 to 65 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, but have you heard anything about when was the last time it went off? And she's like, well, it went off about 30 something minutes ago. So we're looking at, 30 minutes or less until it goes off again. I'm like, all right, sit down for half an hour. It's worse things to do. Well, like I said, it's in a big open field. There's no sun coverage. There's no breeze because there's people as far as the eye can see. So any little breeze that there may have been, you're not going to get it. So now I'm just like baking in the sun. Now, a little tidbit about me is that I'm very sun sensitive. So despite my rich chocolate color, my melanin does nothing for sun protection, because what I get is heat rash. Some people call it prickly heat, but I break out in hives and then all of my skin peels off if I spend more than 30 minutes in direct sunlight. Even with sunblock on, I put on SPF 100 every day. Every day. Even when I'm not going outside, like when I go to work every day, I put on sunblock on my face and on my body every day, because I don't know, I've never gotten it officially diagnosed, but I'm telling you, the sun does something to me. So I'm out there and it's about the 30-minute mark and I can feel the heat baking me, and I'm like, this is bad. I should probably go. But like at this point, I've been waiting 30 minutes and I'm like, can you imagine if I walk away and like I'm in the parking lot and I see the geyser go off behind me? I was like, I'm committed at this point. I have to stay. So I stay, and it's like 45 minutes now, and I am really like on fire. I'm uncomfortable. And like, I guess I looked uncomfortable because I was maybe bobbing and weaving a little bit, because the lady who was sitting next to me, she's like, ma'am, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I just had a long day. I did a lot today. I'm all right. And so I'm sitting there. She's like, we got some water. Do you want some water? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take some water. So I'm drinking the water. And this lady has gone from staring at the geyser to now staring directly at me. and I'm trying my best to act natural because the last thing I want is for EMS to come get me. One, I can't pay for it. I don't want to pay for anybody to take me anywhere. And two, I don't want to miss this damn geyser after I've already baked in the sun for 45 minutes to see it. So I'm like, so I kind of put my head down to kind of like, you know, shield my face a little bit because I can feel my forehead and like the tops of my shoulders are just an inferno. So I'm like, you know, head down, and I hear this guy go, oh, there it goes. And so like I'm fumbling with my phone trying to like catch it on video, and it's like a little sputter, and that's it. It's like maybe 3 feet off the ground. It's like psh, psh, and that was all. And so I'm looking around like waiting for somebody to say something like, oh, that's not it, that's just a start. And, you know, and no one's saying anything. The lady's like, that's it, there's a kid. He's like, we waited for that. So it's like maybe 5 minutes goes by, and I'm like, I'm hoping that this is just a precursor to let you know it's coming. I'm like, so this is like, you know what I mean, the forewarning that it's about to blow. So 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by, and I'm like, oh my God, did I just wait here for 45 minutes to see this punk ass geyser shoot 3 feet of water from 6 miles away? And so like now at this point, I'm like, you know what? Like many things on this trip, some things just don't work out and you gotta let it go. So I'm like, you know what? I got my little fanny pack on. I'm putting my hair up. I'm grabbing my purse. Got my little bottle of water the lady gave me, and I'm getting ready to go. And I hear another gasp, and I'm like, oh. And I turn around, and the geyser is going off. It is shooting in the air. It is like, I don't really know how high stuff is. It's like higher than a couple buildings on top of each other. Like, what is it, like 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet? I don't know. It's, put a video up there so you can see it, but it's majestic. It's very cool. It's loud. Everyone's gasping and clapping and yelling. Like, it's a great time. It was worth it. Would I do it again? Fuck no. But for what I invested, I was happy with the outcome. So I got my video, a couple pictures, hauled ass out of there. Traffic jam again. And now I'm in the Prius with the pussy wagon, my rumbly trailer, stuck in traffic. And it takes like 3 hours to get outside of the park. So by the time I got out, I was hot and sweaty and tired. And remember, Idaho doesn't have any fucking rest stop anywhere near, you know, the exit to the park. But you know what I did find out? Yellowstone doesn't close. They don't have hours. There's not like a gate they close or you have to be out by or anything. So in theory, I could have camped inside Yellowstone and nobody would have been none the wiser. So pro tip, if you go and you have like a rig like I do and you're camping out of it kind of incognito, camping's like $27 a night, and I think it goes up if you get like fancier camp. The bare ass minimum is like $27 a night. It's free if you just park wherever the hell you want and get in your car. So next time I go, Yellowstone's not gonna get me with that one, because I was sure as hell gonna pay the $27 to camp on a campground, but I don't need to. I could park in any lot, wham bam, I'm camping. So that was that. I finally made it out, made it to a rest stop in Idaho. No, I don't think I did stop at a rest stop in Idaho, did I? Yeah, I think I did. I made it to a rest stop in Idaho, got myself cleaned up, changed, and that is the Chronicles of Yellowstone National Park. Would I do it again? Abso-freaking-lutely. I cannot. I'm already like trying to figure out how many friends I have that would be willing to rent a motor coach that could trailer all of our bikes, and we could like all pitch it, because them motor coaches, they're like $1 million. They're like, not $1 million, maybe like $500,000, but like they're expensive. But I'm like, if I can get 10 friends, because you gotta fit 15 people in there. If I can fit that many people in there, there's a bunch of like military vehicles just showed up. I'm hoping they're not doing some kind of exercise right here. So I was like, if I could get 10 or 12 friends to rent one of them big ass motor coaches, and we get a big ass trailer, we can trailer all our bikes down there, it would be the trip of a lifetime. It was absolutely amazing. I can't wait to do it again. Like, I can't wait to to have children, to take my children to go to Yellowstone and see how, like, this is the shit I wish I did as a kid. It was just, even if you're not into the outdoors, it was amazing. Just so beautiful and so wide open. The water's super clear. They have little places where you can swim. A lot of them were closed for Corona, but like the little shallow waters, they're very warm. The water is crisp and clear. It's just fresh and green. And then the fact that it was calving season and there was elk all over the place, it was just magical. It was absolutely magical. And if I could have spent a month there, I would have, but I'm just like trying to see so much stuff. So I see a little bit and then I got to get on the road. But if you have the chance to go, definitely go. Plan what you're doing. I did not plan. I was just like, you know, looping across the nation, and I'm like, there's Yellowstone. So I probably missed a lot that I wouldn't have had I planned better, but I still saw a lot just because I had the freedom of doing it on a motorcycle. And then that was my final tip, is that if you do go, rent yourself a bike or get yourself a moped or any sort of two-wheel vehicle that you can skip traffic, because it will take your trip from all right to absolutely mind-blowing, because you'll be able to get through everything, everywhere, VIP status. So it's getting late. It's pretty dark. And all of these people are probably staring at me wondering why I'm talking to my computer. So that was all of Yellowstone. If you have any questions, concerns, if you want to see any more pictures, please go over to my Instagram. I'm going to post a bunch of pictures there and little videos so you can see more stuff that I saw. I'll probably include a couple here as I'm heading out so you can see them. And like I told you before, like, comment, and subscribe. As long as I have people watching, it gives me a reason to keep busting my ass trying to put these videos out, even though I'm not that great at it. But I'll do it anyway as long as someone's watching. And I will catch you guys in the very next video. Have a very good night, and hopefully I will see all of you very soon.